Welcome, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 14th, regular council meeting. All the council must be present. We'll call this meeting to order, starting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear God, we first want to say thank you. We thank you for life, strength, courage, and community. We ask for endurance to face challenges, wisdom to overcome them, and strength to conquer them. We pray always for a community where humanity is in surplus, unity is more than an ideal, and equity is a bottom line. We ask that you remind us all that the problems of a few should be solved through the connection of us all. Continue to guide us and keep us. Continue to make us selfless leaders and citizens of Bluffton, wherever they are, and lead us towards a brighter Bluffton, reflecting on yesterday and working to leave a better today and an even better tomorrow for everyone. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, moving on to the adoption of the minutes of last regular meeting on 4/9/24. Are there any changes to the, let's see, where am I at? Regular meeting. Are there, oh, I don't have the agenda on here, I'm going too fast. Well, the regular meeting minutes of 4/9/24. Motion to approve? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And we'll move to the adoption to the agenda. Are there any changes, Mr. C?
No, sir.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? That's unanimous. I got it. Presentations, celebrations, and recognitions. First up is Beaufort County School District Character Student of the Month.
Miles?
Do we have one?
Miles gotta be here now. He is not here.
Okay. Next up is National Mental Health Substance Use Prevention Month. So this is National Mental Health Awareness Proclamation from the town of Bluffton. Whereas during the month of May, a National Health Observance is dedicated to increasing public awareness of and action around the mental health and wellness of youth and adults, and whereas rates of substance use and reports of depression, suicidal thoughts and attempts, and serious mental illnesses have increased, and whereas 1 out of 5 children experience a mental health disorder in a given year, and half of all lifetime cases of mental illness and substance use begin by age 14 and 3/4 by age 24. And whereas youth and adults who suffer from social isolation, fear, anxiety, loss, and uncertainty during COVID-19 continue to suffer from or may be at risk for mental and or substance use disorders. And whereas national and local campaign goals are to promote and decimate quality substance use prevention and mental health promotion resources. And whereas the National Month of Awareness celebrates the efforts of communities and organizations coming together to raise awareness about the importance of mental well-being. And whereas the Town Council of Bluffton, South Carolina joins and supports the efforts of Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth Coalition and its Youth Coalition. Teams for Youth, Healthy Youth, and raising awareness, combating stigma, and promoting mental health and wellness issues, the following proclamation. Now here therefore, I, Larry Toomer, Mayor of the Town of Bluffton, along with Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month in the Town of Bluffton. So, Would you like to say
Sure, I
a few
can.
words to the audience and
Should I go up here?
council? Sure.
All right. Hi, good evening. I'm Aviana Stevens, and I am the youth representative for Low Country Alliance of Healthy Youth. And I am honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of Low Country Alliance. May is known as Mental Health Awareness Month and Substance Abuse Prevention Month. So I just would like to say thank you to Mayor Toomer and thank you, Town Council. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Sure.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you.
This one's not here, you said? Oh, so what's his name?
David Rock.
David? How are you? You want to talk about what this is all about a little bit before I read this?
Okay.
Okay, go right there to the microphone. This is David Rock.
Well, May is the National Month of Awareness for Tourette syndrome, and essentially what Tourette syndrome is it consists of when somebody does like motor or oral, like what we call them tics. So it's essentially repetitive movements, so like blinking eyes, stretching out your arms, something like that you cannot control. And it's not very commonly known, and it can often get overshadowed by other disorders. So it's very important to recognize it. So I do appreciate that Mayor Toomer and the rest of Town Council is recognizing it. So thank you for that.
Okay, so we have a Town of Bluffton Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas Tourette syndrome is an inherited neurological disorder that is characterized by involuntary physical or vocal tics that may occur many times a day. And whereas Tourette syndrome is often accompanied by other mental health disorders such as attention deficit and obsessive compulsive disorder, learning disabilities, and anxiety. And whereas Tourette syndrome and persistent tic disorders affect 1 in 50 children across all races and ethnic groups. An estimated 22,246 school-aged children in the state of South Carolina alone are dealing with Tourette syndrome, and there is no standard treatment or known cure for the disorder. And whereas there is an important need for more professional help to identify, counsel, and treat people with Tourette syndrome, especially in those with less access to health care. And whereas positive actions to assist children and families living with the Tourette syndrome would result from a broadening of public and professional knowledge and acceptance of Tourette syndrome. And I now, therefore, Larry Toomer, Mayor of the Town of Bluffton, along with Town Council, do hereby proclaim that May 15th through June 15th, 2024 be recognized as Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month in the Town of Bluffton to promote understanding, compassion, and acceptance for all our fellow citizens who deserve and need our support to break the stigma and surrounds of Tourette syndrome. And that's it. So, some prizes, these are worth a lot of money.
We all need one.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Great.
Thank you very much. So,
No, they're not here.
so are we going to mention this, or we'll just hold it till next time?
Okay.
Okay. Up next will be, we approved the agenda. Yeah. So next will be public comment. Marcia, I have only one.
What? No, sir, read the rules
Oh, you mean
first, and I have 3.
Oh, excuse me, I forgot my job. During public comment, each speaker is limited to a total of 3 minutes per meeting, regardless of whether the person is speaking on their own behalf or as an agent for others. Meeting attendees may not donate, transfer, yield, or give all or any portion of their speaking time to another person. All public comments are to be conducted from the podium and directed to town council as a whole, not to any member thereof. All speakers shall be mindful and respectful of those participating in or present at the meeting. Speakers shall be expected to be civil in their language and shall refrain from comment or behavior that involves disorderly speech or action. Name calling, personal attacks, threats, obscene or indecent remarks, and disruptive actions. Excuse me. All speakers shall confine their comments to issues under the jurisdiction of town council. Speakers shall not use the public comment period to promote or advertise awards, businesses, services, goods, or candidates for public office. Any speaker that violates these rules and protocols for public comment may be ruled out of order by the presiding officer, which is me. And any person whose comments have been ruled out of order shall immediately cease and desist from further improper comments. The refusal of any individual to desist from further improper comments may subject the individual to removal from the meeting and or a citation under section 2-49 of the town code.
Christina Stover.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Stover. My address is 82 Buck Island Road, Bluffton, South Carolina, and I stand before you today as a concerned citizen of Bluffton. The charm and character of our beloved Calhoun Street, along with Boundary Street and Old Town, are undeniable. But unfortunately, along with its allure comes a pressing issue: traffic safety. As our town has experienced a significant increase in population, festivals, events, and tourism, the infrastructure of Calhoun Street has struggled to keep pace. The result, an alarming disregard for the speed limits and a clear threat to the safety and well-being of our community members and visitors alike. We cannot ignore the consequences of inaction. Every day, residents, children, and pedestrians brave the streets, hoping for safe passage amidst the chaos of speeding vehicles. It's time for us to take a stand and implement a comprehensive speed control system to address the pressing concern. My proposal includes decreasing the speed limit and installing speed bumps. These measures are not just about enforcing rules, they're about fostering a culture of safety and respect on our streets. Implementing a speed control system is not just a matter of convenience, it's a matter of public safety and community well-being. By taking proactive steps now, we can prevent accidents, injuries, and even fatalities in the future. I urge each member of this esteemed council to consider the gravity of this situation and to prioritize the safety and welfare of our community. Let us work together to ensure that Calhoun Street and the Old Town area remains a place of charm, hospitality, and above all, safety for generations to come. I am on Calhoun Street daily. And I have firsthand witnessed the amount of individuals that use that street to avoid the four-way stop there at Bluffton and May River Road. And it's unbelievable the disrespect that these individuals have for the pedestrians and the homeowners, the businesses. I have started a petition on change.org with over 600 signatures to help implement some type of speed control on this road. There was two speed limit signs, one at the beginning after you turn off of 46 onto Calhoun and one all the way at the end. There's none in between, and the first sign is vandalized, and there's,
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing that concern, and we will have our town manager and chief get in touch with you and talk to you more about it and follow up with you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Brown?
The ringer didn't go off. Hello.
It shouldn't start yet.
Not yet. Not yet,
I didn't
Marcia.
speak.
She-
Y'all all over. Hold up. Good evening, everyone. Sharon Brown. I live on 163 Buck Island Road. And I am here. It's such a funny thing that lady should be talking about traffic. But first, I want to give Heather kudos and Mr. Hamilton. I called them because there was some suspicious activities I thought that was going on. Some people were working underground on Buck Island Road. And I called Mr. Hamilton first to ask him if he knew of anything. It was underground wiring or something, wasn't it, Mr. Hamilton, that was going on? But Heather called me. I called her, and she said anytime that I had a problem that I could call her 24/7. That means 3 o'clock in the morning if I got a problem. So with that said, and also I want to give kudos to the Bluffton Police Department for Cinco de Mayo, the traffic, the signs that you guys put, no parking. It was just absolute. When I got back in town, the traffic was really governed. You know, I don't know why we have to have Cinco de Mayo on a baseball field, but that's another story. But I want to thank you, Chief, and your department. They did well. The only thing they didn't do is people had trash on down Ballfield Road, I understand. So I'm back here to talk about, again, the disrespect that the town manager is giving me with the emails that I've given him. He must be getting ready to quit or something, because he won't reply to my emails. I called Marcia to make sure that I called personally and asked him to give me a call. She took the message down, she said she gave it to him. Everybody's seen my email, so I don't understand, what is the policy when you ask a person, especially your manager, to give a citizen a call? Just want to sit down and meet, also with the chief as well, because the policy says for the police department, it says the Bluffton Police Department encouraged citizens to report what they believe to be an act of police misconduct. I've emailed all you town council people. You guys already know what I feel was a misconduct with the arrest of Bridget Frazier. All we want is some questions answered. What's the protocol? That's all, and I can't get any of these people to get back with me with a meeting. So I'm going to be emailing you, Mayor, because one thing I can say about Lisa Salka, she would always email me back and say, Sharon, let's meet to talk about the issue, because that's a problem. Anytime your town employees do not respect citizens enough to give them at least a phone call back, if he didn't want to meet with me, he could have called me. This is the 5th email that I've sent. And I also sent the picture with Bridget being arrested. That was just a shame. If it was wrongdoing, so be it. But somebody needs to give our African-American community some answers. We should not be going around here thinking. We all fall short and we all are wrong sometimes. So that's all we were asking for. So for the town manager, thank you so much for the disrespect. Chief, I know I'll be hearing from you. We want to be cordial. This is all about cordial. This ain't nothing about no disrespect, okay? And Chris, you look good in that jacket. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Sharon.
Sharon Arms?
Good evening, and thank you for the public speaking time that you allow, and also for the recommendations that you give. They were very good.
If you say your name and your address, if you will, first, ma'am.
Certainly.
Record.
Karen Arms. I'm at 40 Dragonfly Drive, and my phone number is available. Okay.
We don't need that.
This is about an incident that occurred last Saturday during Bluffton Mayfest. I live far enough away. I parked at the Red Cedar Elementary School to take the shuttle that's provided by the group in town to come to the festivities and to go back to your car. When I went back, the parking lot was totally full. There was no parking spaces. I went down every aisle. And so I drove across the street into an alley type of thing, and the parking lot to the right had some parking spaces in it, so I parked there. When I came back, I found that my car had been towed. And I had been, when I went inside Russo's fishery to find out where it was and what was going on, I was told that it was their right to tow my car because in South Carolina, that parking space in front of the businesses belongs to them, and they can do whatever they wish with whatever is parked outside. There were no signs on the entrance or the exit. I provided pictures that you can see. There were about no parking or restricted parking or anything else, and there was a clear drive, Half Moon Drive, in front of the building. Now, the lot next to the row of businesses on the left-hand side, I went in the right-hand side, on the left-hand side had signs saying no parking here with restrictions and so on, and very mindful of that. But I didn't even see that because I was looking for the one parking space that had a parking space. It cost me $300 in cash, demanded to be in cash, to get my car at 36 Persimmon Street. Now, there is no building at 36 Persimmon Street, and it's even out of order along the numbering on Persimmon Street, in case you want to check it out. And there's only, lots that are blockaded in. A kind gentleman from Rotary was there and gave me a ride to the bank to get $300 in cash, and then on to the parking lot to get my car. I insisted again that it had to be cash. That's my story, and my suggestion to you that you insist that these parking lots who have restricted parking label them so, and I'm asking that you do it to that particular lot, and I'll pay for the sign if the town of Bluffton will simply install it, because that was totally unnecessary and very unsettling for the day. And thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for your comment, and I'm sorry for that unfortunate experience.
Thank you.
We will be, we have our contact information. The chief will be looking into the entire thing and get back with you soon.
I appreciate that very much. And I need to leave, but I'm not being disrespectful by leaving because I have another commitment. And thank you very much for listening.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, moving on to communications from Mayor and Council. We'll start with Bridget.
Just wanted to send congratulations to all of our class of 2024 graduates. I know this is graduation season, everyone from elementary to middle school, but more importantly, our high school graduates who are going to be heading into the next chapter of their lives. And so just extending that to Cross Schools, Bluffton High, May River High, and Hilton Head Christian Academy class of 2024 graduates.
Yes, sir. I just want to say that Bluffton Jasper Volunteers in Medicine had their annual gala. Obviously, the weather impacted it somewhat, but we still took it inside at Hewitt Oaks, and we were well supported by the community. And so anybody that was there, we appreciate it. We were grateful, and there still is time for the silent auction online, which ends soon. Thank you.
Mr. Hamilton?
I'm disappointed. You read about 3 or 4 different proclamations and didn't give me one for my birthday. That's why you're here, right, Reverend Kitty? Thank you for coming.
Ms. Burton?
I would like to wish Councilman Hamilton a happy birthday.
Today is your birthday?
No, May 22nd.
It's not even his birthday yet. Already, some people celebrate for a week for their birthday. I never. Well, I just want to say thank you to town council as well as staff and everyone else for the prayers and the nice words and text and emails and everything to my family over the last week or 10 days. It was heartfelt. I lost my mother-in-law. So those of you who didn't know, but I just want to say thank you for the flowers from council and town staff. They were beautiful and they're alive and they'll continue to grow. And say happy birthday to my mother-in-law. She would have been 90 today. Wow. So she almost made it. But anyway, thank you for everyone. Moving on, we have a public hearing and final reading on a consideration of an ordinance to amend certain sections of the town of Bluffton's municipal code of ordinances. Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, Design Standards, Section 5.4, Wetlands, and Section 5.10, Stormwater, and Article 9, Definitions and Interpretations, Section 9.2. So this is a public hearing and final reading. Mr. Icard.
Yes, if you could call for a public hearing, sir?
Yes, this is public hearing. This is a first call for a public hearing. Do I need to get comments for the public hearing?
3 calls.
Second call for public hearing comments. Third call for public hearing comments from the public. Public hearing is closed.
Great, thank you, sir. This is the second reading for the wetlands amendments that you just referenced. There are no changes from the first reading that we held back in April. Happy to entertain a motion. If you wish, I can go through the presentation if you'd like.
Any questions from anyone?
I do have a question. No questions in regards to changing anything. I just had a question in terms of, does this amendment make it easier for you all to be able to enforce things that need to be enforced right now?
Yes, ma'am.
From anyone else? So we have a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor. I move to approve the following amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinance, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, Design Standards, Section 5.4, Wetlands, and Section 5.10, Stormwater, and Article 9, Definitions and Interpretations, Section 9.2.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion from council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Next, we'll be moving to consideration of an ordinance to approve an amendment to the Town of Bluffton zoning map to rezone certain real property owned by Cornerstone Church of Bluffton and Lally Ann Mole, consisting of approximately 43.31 acres, more or less, located at 11 Grassy Lane and 21 Lake Lane, and identified by Beaufort County tax map numbers R610036 000 0014 0000 and R610036 000 014B 0000 from Plan Unit Development Zoning District to a mix of agriculture zoning and rural mixed use zoning districts, zone 02-24-018921. This is a public hearing and final reading, Mr. Kevin, and we'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments on this matter from the public? Calling twice. Any public comments? This is third and final. No public comments. The public hearing is closed.
Great, thank you, sir. This is the second reading, as you just stated. During the first reading, Town Council did unanimously approve the zoning map amendment. I'm happy to go through the presentation. If not, I do have a proposed motion for you.
Anyone have any questions or want him to review anything?
I have none.
So we have a motion here. Someone would like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion. I recommend to approve the request for approval of an amendment to the Town of Bluffton zoning map to rezone 2 parcels from Plan Unit Development PUD to agriculture. And the rural mixed use from the subject parcel consists of approximately 43.31 acres and are identified by the tax map R610036 000 0014 0000 and R610036 000 014B 0000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Moving on now, we'll move on to the formal agenda items. Next up is consideration of an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of certain real property owned by the town of Bluffton to Workforce State of Mind LLC, located at 1095 May River Road and consisting of 1.78 acres more or less, and identified by Beaufort County Tax Map number R610390004980000, and authorizing the execution and recording of associated documents. Ms. Heather Collins.
Thank you. So I'm here before you to request that you consider second reading of the ordinance to transfer the property that we have commonly referred to as 1095 May River Road to Workforce State of Mind LLC. You may recall that you all did hear this. Let's say you heard this back in October of last year for first reading to transfer the property. This, as you know, has been a workforce and affordable housing is one of our guiding principles in our strategic plan. And one of the action agenda items is specifically to work with partners to increase affordable housing here in the town of Bluffton. So this is the next step to facilitate that action agenda. Just a little bit of history of the property, won't go through it, but we did partner with Workforce State of Mind LLC to construct at this location, there will be 12 affordable housing units. The next steps will be to secure the final development permits and plans, just waiting for a couple of final outside agency approvals, but expect those within the next little bit, hopefully the next days, not weeks. But then the next step would be to go ahead and transfer that property to Workforce State of Mind. Per that agreement, that was the next step once they secure those permits, so that then they can secure financing, then begin construction, and then ultimately go vertical with the building permits. This here is the development plan that they are proposing to build. As you can see to the right, I guess, of your screen, you see May River Road. It's kind of like an L-shaped property, and those units, they will be for sale, single-family units. This is just that, another view of that property located on May River Road near Posey's Court. Just another reference there. And as I said, the next steps will be the final approval of that development plan, which we expect very soon. Then closing, should you all approve this ordinance. Then the construction of the infrastructure by Workforce State of Mind, and then ultimately the building permits will be applied for and issued. I believe there's one member of their development team here today, but also stay tuned. We'll be sending out an invite, and there will be some notification for a groundbreaking in the near future. Again, should you approve this ordinance.
Any idea on that? 30 days, 2 weeks, or?
For the groundbreaking?
Yes.
The groundbreaking is, it's the end of this month.
Oh, really? Okay. Any questions from council for Heather? I think we all knew about this, but. No questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We had to make a motion first.
I was waiting on Fred to read it.
I'm gonna let you do this one. Go ahead.
I move to approve as amended second and final reading of an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of certain real property owned by the town of Bluffton to Workforce State of Mind LLC, located at 1095 May River Road and consisting of 1.78 acres, more or less, and identified as Beaufort County Tax Map number R610090004980000, and authorizing the execution and recording of associated documents.
Second.
Any discussion?
Could I, Councilwoman Frazier, you indicated approve as amended. There were no amendments, so if we could just delete that from your motion, I think it would make it just a little bit cleaner. Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
You want me to reread it?
No, you're good. As long as our clerk, Madam Clerk, you got it? Thank you.
So we have a first and a second on the motion. Is there any more discussion with anyone? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so that's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Heather. Up next, we got a consideration of an ordinance approving the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2025 proposed consolidated budget. This is first reading, and our town manager, Mr. Steese, will present.
Mayor and Councilwoman, I apologize because this one's going to be a lot longer than the previous three because
No.
it is the budget.
Start is 3 minutes.
Yeah, start your.
If you want me to keep it to 3, I can fly through if I need to. So, as you know, this is one of the most important things that we do as a town, and one of town council's most biggest priorities is to adopt a budget annually for the town of Bluffton. I'm going to go through, this is a lot of slides. I'm going to go through them very high level. As you know, when we get through the process, we actually have a budget workshop coming up this Thursday. When we get there, we'll go more in detail. Our first one, we focus on the general fund. And then we have a second one on May the 30th where we'll get more into capital projects and some of our other funds, debt and stuff like that. And usually that's when we also have some of our nonprofits that we are seeking funds from us that come in and talk to y'all as well, like the Chamber, Bluffton Breeze, and so forth. So, and then second, and the public hearing will be June 11th with the second reading as well. So I'm going to go through real quick, kind of some economic factors, our budget goals for 25, the proposed overview, and then the review and approval process. So just some high-level economic factors for Bluffton, 54 square miles. That hasn't changed much over the last couple of years. So you can see we're estimating our population to be for this current year around 35, probably somewhere around a little higher than there right now. You can see some of the breakdowns per capita and unemployment and kind of medium housing costs. So one of the things I would point out is you can see that medium housing home value is a little over $390,000. That is continuing to climb from where it was 3 to 5 years ago. So just want to point that out as well as the median gross rent. This is just to show that as one of the reasons why affordable housing is such a high priority for council. Just some of the economic drivers, just kind of breakdown of some of the makeup of our employment. You can see health and education is down a little bit, which is one of the reasons why it's part of our economic development incentive program and a priority for there. You can see accommodations, food, entertainment is up a little bit, retail's down a little bit, and then construction, as we've seen with some of the new construction going on, is picking back up as a percentage of our workforce over the last year. Just to hit again on economic factors, we are in excellent credit position. We got our AAA bond rating this past year. We're still AA plus bond rated with Standard & Poor's. And I would assume that if we asked them to come in and do a review, if we were issuing bonds, they would probably match what we saw from Moody's, but we got our AAA last year. So again, the part of the budget is we do strategic planning annually. We do a 2-year strategic plan, review it annually, is to identify the goals of council to make sure those end up in our budget. So as you can see here, our goal is to make our budget strategic plan priority based and to focus on the vision and mission that the council has. So you can see things in there like affordable housing, update to our community, our neighborhood plans, our master plans, watershed resiliency, our May River Action Plan, partnerships to protect the water, whether that's rivers or watersheds, and our capital projects to make sure they're getting done and address council's goals as we look to address these. So I'm gonna go through real quick and talk about this, the funds, and this will be at a high level. Like I said, when we do our workshops, we'll get into more details within each of those general fund of the funds. So the first one is going to look at our consolidated overall budget. As you can see on here, our consolidated overall budget for all funds is a little over $90 million, almost $90,500,000. This is actually down a couple percent from the previous year. Most of that has to do, as you'll see in our capital improvement program fund, as we've knocked out some of these capital projects over the last year and made progress on others. That number's coming down because we've been carrying forward so much money to get these projects moving forward. Now that they're moving forward, we're seeing that number decrease a little bit over last year. So it's down about $4 million. But you can see general fund, our stormwater's up a little bit, and then our debt service, which is our TIF funds that we did last year, coming in to help finish up the park over at New Riverside. So breaking this down into kind of just a pie, make it a little easier to see, you can see about 16.8% of our property taxes, or of our revenues generate from property taxes, 6% are local hospitality and accommodations. License and permits make up about 17% as well. And then you can see the grants is up to about 4.7%, and entitlement, a lot of that has to do with some grants and funds that we received this year that will continue to go forward towards some projects. And then you can see the rest of it comes in from transfers ends, and we'll talk about that as we move forward, where we have stormwater and some of the other funds that transfer into our general fund to help pay for some of our services that we provide, and also into our capital projects. So here's our revenues kind of broken down over for our consolidated budget. You can see this is kind of what the pie chart showed. So I'm not going to go too much in detail into that, but you can see how it's a percent change over the previous year to what is being proposed. So you can see an increase in our property tax based on the value increase there, things that have grown in value, but also more construction that we've had take place. You can see license and permits holding steady. Same thing with hospitality and accommodations tax. That's where you can see our grants and entitlements. I mentioned earlier that it's up to about 5%. That's almost double from where it was last year. And again, that speaks to money that we've been able to go after for grants from the state and federal government to help with some of our capital items. And then you can just kind of see how that compares all the way down. And then ultimately, when you get down to the total consolidated budget, it's about $2 million short of what it was last year. So where does that money go to get spent? As you can see, about 21% is in our personnel and benefits. That's one of our most important things. Without great people, we can't provide great services. The rest of it goes into operating, 13.9%. And then you can see the vast majority of it is in our capital outlays. That's, again, one of our largest line item. It is what we are doing to build parks, to do sewer projects, to do all the capital projects that are part of council's strategic plan. This kind of breaks that down into numbers, that pie chart, and gives you, again, you can see where personnel and benefits, again, is increasing. So we're trying to take care of our employees. We'll talk about some of the items that are reflected, that reflects. You can see operating going up a little bit, and then you can see the rest of that. It's kind of no major really changes until you get into land acquisition. Part of that is we've actually spent money this year to acquire land, so it's reduced that amount of money down. And can have a conversation about getting that number back up so that we can make sure we can continue to buy land and take development rights off the books as we move forward. And you can see stormwater and sewer projects are down a little bit just because we've spent money on getting some of these projects done, and we're looking to continue to do that. Most of that's Buckeye and Simmonsville Phase 5, and as well as some of the stormwater projects that we did out here on Bridge Street and so forth. So when we talked about earlier about how we do transfers between funds, this just gives you an idea of the funds that are moving back and forth within the budget to help cover operations based on certain things. So the general fund, you can see we transfer money in from the hospitality tax. That would be for things like we're getting ready to open the new Welcome Center in January is our target date for opening that. So we would need, some of those funds may go to help operate the Welcome Center. They can go to help pay to maintain parks. They may go to help police out at events. Our community and our communications and community outreach team for putting on events and stuff like that. That money would transfer in and offset those costs within the general fund. Same thing, local accommodations tax and stormwater. They transfer into the general fund to help pay the salary and operations for that department. And then you can also see all the different funds that are transferring into the CIP fund, which is what funds all the projects that we do within the town. And lastly, you can see our debt service where we transfer for our stormwater bonds that are being paid out of the stormwater. So here's some highlights of the overall budget. It does recognize a slight slowdown for construction, and that's just holding the permits steady. We're seeing things getting complete and our property taxes growing, but it really holds the permitting down from what we've seen over the last couple of years since COVID kind of got through COVID. We've seen the number of permits decrease. It holds our property tax millage the same as it was set during reassessment at 36 mills. Again, you hear this a lot. We focus on town council priority programs, affordable housing, historic preservation, quality of life, community outreach, and celebrations. We also work to keep our pay competitive for our employees. We did a class and compensation study this year. We are recommending that it be implemented over a 2-year period. So we have in here our cost of living adjustment as well as the class and compensation that will provide a range depending on where employees fall within how far they are behind their market. So that would provide that increase based on that study. And then we also have our typical mid-year merit increase of 2% that would take place after we do evaluations in January. Continue to invest in public infrastructure. We talked about capital projects, continue to talk about those, but I'm gonna continue on so we can be mindful of time. Again, we support our strategic partnerships that we have out there. We have our Palmetto Breeze that we fund, Public Defender, our programs that we work with USCB to do our water quality sampling, and also our Bluffton Ambassador program. Continues with the Beaufort County School District and local private schools to have school resource officers and school crossing guards. That's contracts that we have with them and grants that they receive from the school district does to help pay for some additional school resource officers. Also continues Don Ryan Center, and also I'll hit on our accommodations tax. This is the first year we'll be using our accommodations tax to help fund affordable housing programs. By state law, we can now put 15% of local and 15% of state. Our budget is recommending that we do so. We're looking to use the 15% of state funds to go towards CIP affordable housing projects. Those could be what we're doing at 1095 May River, Bluffton Road, whether it's any other capital projects where we want to do that to help support private projects that may be going out there. It's a funding source that we can use that for. We're then recommending that our local go into our general fund to support our programs that we have, like the Neighborhood Assistance Program, the Regional Housing Trust Fund, and programs like that, and kind of put our state into one source of programs and our local into another source of programs. You will see staff coming back with an amendment to our consolidated plan that is required per state law that we have to do a study to use the state funds. So they plan on having that, I think it's in June and July. So we'll have that adopted in July so that when we start spending those funds the next budget year, that we'll meet all the requirements of the state law. And then again, our DMO, which is required by law that we have a DMO and partner with them at their percentage. And that's with state accommodations tax, none local.
So on the law that was passed, it's good for 7 years. So we're taking the 15%, we will use that to CIP affordable housing projects. So that will lower the number that we've been utilizing in the past. So where will if we come short, where does that come from? On the state?
What do you mean short on the state? I apologize.
It's ATAX dollars, is it not?
Correct.
Okay.
So if the 15% comes off the top of the ATAX dollars.
Right.
So just like with the state ATAX, there's a formula where 15% of this can go, and then we get to keep, was it 8%, Chris? Or there's a certain percentage we get to transfer into the general fund, 5%. All those percentages come off the top, what goes to the DMO, and then what's remaining is what would be available for the ATAX committee to give out.
Well, that was my question. Basically,
Yeah.
it will lower the pot a little bit, typically, right?
Yes, sir.
So if that happens, where do we dig to get the,
So it's a matter of whether we stick to what the direction has been from council. The last time it came up that there were more requests and there was funding,
Right.
was to not go beyond what was available for funding. If we see a trend where there are not enough accommodations tax to address those funding requests, then council can revisit and give direction of whether they would like to see other funds supplement it, or whether they would like to remove the 15% and reduce it for A-tax or something like that. But we've only had one incident that in the last several years of not having enough funds to cover requests. So if we see that becoming a trend, then that's something that I think council we can work on solutions for.
thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so first up is the general fund. As you can see, the value of our mill, which is how we base property taxes on, it's continued to climb. From 24 to 25, it increased almost $100 million. So you can see the value of our mill value went up just short of $90,000 for the value of one mill. The town of Bluffton, as you can see, we're proposing to keep our millage rate the same as it was for this current fiscal year, and that's reflected in the numbers that you see there. Overall, you can see the breakdown of the general fund revenues. Even with that increase to the value of the mill, you can see it still only makes up about 31% of our overall revenues. About 37% comes from license and permits, that's business license, building permits, and so forth. And you can also see the grants and entitlements, because of the growth the success we've had there, is up to 8.6% of the overall revenues. And then you can see the next one that's largest is 13.5%, and that's the transfer ends, and that's where I covered earlier with some of the monies that come from other funds to help offset operating expenses that support them. This is the numerical representation of that chart. As you can see, overall, the general fund revenues are projected to be up about 7%, 7.5% of where they were last year. Again, consolidated budget is looking to decrease, but the general fund is looking to go up about a little over 7.5%. You can see where those revenues are coming from. You can see MASC insurance tax is up about $500,000. But again, you can see building permits, with us seeing where the growth numbers are. That number is reducing significantly to make sure that we don't overestimate what construction is going to be and put ourselves in a hole should things continue on the trend that they are for this current fiscal year. And then again, grants and entitlements, you can see that number's up about $1.2 million, as well as seeing some of the other revenues down, puts us at a total of about $2 million up over last year, with about $1.2 million of that coming directly from grants and entitlements for this current fiscal year. So where does that money get spent? This gives you an outline of where general fund goes. Again, a little over half of it, about 57%, goes to pay for our salaries and benefits of our employees. 36% goes to operations, and then the rest are for capital and transfer out to our CIP fund to fund projects. This is the numerical breakdown of that. And then some highlights of what's in the general fund that for this current year. We've already talked a little bit about the proposed increases for our employees to keep up with what we've seen with inflation and the growth in costs and expenses, and to keep up with our counterparts around the area to make sure that we're paying at a competitive rate. Again, carries our PTO payout option of up to 25 hours for employees that meet the requirements. It also includes 11.8% increase in our employee health insurance through the state health plan. So that is not an increase that we get to control. That is mandated from the state and adopted by the state legislator, and they have approved 11.8% for this year. Last year, I think it was 2%. The year before that, it was like 18%. So it's fluctuating right now. Excuse me. It does include a few new positions. As I mentioned, we are targeting January 1st to open the Welcome Center and the Squire Pope Carriage House. So we need some people to staff that. So it has a full-time person and a part-time person to operate the Welcome Center. The full-time is recommended to be hired sooner rather than later to help get it ready and operate and help us get everything set up. The part-time would not be needed until the Welcome Center opens to help staff during the weekends or later hours and stuff like that, or in case somebody's sick and so forth. For the police, it does include a full-time community relations manager. This is to help with just community outreach and things and events and stuff that they coordinate, as well as their social media and stuff, and help take some of the pressure off of Debbie and her team from supporting the whole town and them, especially with us adding more events and more in the Welcome Center and everything underneath their department. It'll help take some of that stress off of them. It also increases the crossing guard to 8, which is 1 additional for May River. And this is a request that came from the school district, from parents that complained about how crazy May River is whenever school pickup occurs and drop off, with parents trying to park in like midpoint and kids crossing the road and kids walking on the trails to get there from all the neighborhoods. They asked for a crossing guard and are funding that position.
I was one of those people complaining about that, so I'm glad to see it getting done.
Lastly, it does include 3 new public service worker positions. As you know, with New Riverside Barn, buying the park in Buckwalter, and looking to build a new park in Buckeye and Simmonsville on the land that we bought, we are adding into the facilities that we maintain and the parks that we maintain, and we are reaching a point where they need additional help. So we have recommended 3 new public service workers to start in July for that department. A few other notes. We always support professional development for our staff. It also continues our contract with the how we have in there for the potential increase for the costs related to them with the weekly garbage and bi-weekly recycling pickup. It again supports our PD recruitment and retention, our mental health programs, our historic preservation programs, and DRCI. It also maintains our drug task force, investigations, domestic violence assistance, our Stay Safe Bluffton program, and already talked about the crossing guards. We continually review our town code. Anytime council adopts an ordinance, we have to update it and get our code up to date. As you may know, and I say may because we have a new council member for this budget year, we do a lease program for our police vehicles. This is the 4th year that we've implemented that. It is a 5-year rotation, so we're getting close to next year. We'll be looking to start rotating out some of our first fleet vehicles for there.
So we'll get all new cars at the end after next year, right? Or I mean,
the ones that 20%. So we get 20. Right. So over 5 years, we get 20% that are new every year. Right. So once we get done through the 5th year, they'll start replacing the ones that are 5 years. Right. Or if we reach a point where they tell us that it's more beneficial financially to replace them and then sell those, we get a better return, they'll let us know when that happens as well. But right now we'll be on pretty much 20% will be replaced every year starting in another year. And then there's a couple things in here to help enhance our employee programs. One is a proposal to create a, whether it's on-site or like Bluffton Memorial has like a bus that they can bring out to do some, have like a nurse practitioner on site once or twice a week for our employees to have the ability to go see somebody. As you know, seeking medical care for a primary care physician or just to try to get in and see somebody can be difficult sometimes. This would provide an ability for all of our employees, if they feel like they're getting a sinus infection, they have somebody that they can go see, not cost them anything, and be able to do that. So that's something we're looking to implement. We had talked about doing it previously, but we didn't have space. Now that the Squire Pope is going to be renovating, we'll be opening up a potential space, or with Beaufort Memorial having a bus, there may be an alternative to that now.
With that, Stephen, will this person be considered more of an RN or what?
Could be a nurse practitioner or could be a PA, depends on what how the contracts, we'll put it out for RFP process, and it will depend on what's submitted. Places I've been at before that have had this, we've had a nurse practitioner, and they can come in and they can write prescriptions, they can do some basic diagnosis, they can refer you for additional, to see additional specialists if needed and so forth.
Right, I think that would be great.
And where I've done it before as well, they also kind of work within our wellness program to help employees that may be wanting to stop smoking or lose weight or do some stuff like that, and can help guide them through those processes as well. The other thing is a new program that we're looking to do is an employer, should be employee, not employer, we're not buying houses, employee home buying assistance. And that is for, to offer a way to help employees that work for the town to be able to become homeowners within our town. As we talked about, you saw the cost of home values where they are reaching. It's becoming more and more difficult for people to purchase a home. So we're trying to put a program in place that would encourage and help our employees be able to buy homes. The goal for that is I'm planning to be on the agenda for June to present kind of the outline to the Affordable Housing Committee, get their input, and then bring it back to council in July, should it make it through the budget process, to get the program guidelines adopted so we can look to implement that with our employees. So that's general fund. Special revenues fund, these are hospitality and local accommodations. We kind of talked a little bit about how they support the general fund and some things and some requirements around them. I'm going to start with hospitality tax. As you can see, this one is up about 9% over last year. As you can guess, more people move here, the more people are spending on food and beverage, and that is bringing our hospitality tax funds higher year over year right now. So this just shows you where those funds go. Most of them go either to CIP for our park projects, or they go to the general fund to support operations for the town. Like again, when we do the 4th of July events, this is what covers the cost for that. When we do our movie nights, when we start our concert series this fall, these are the funds that will cover the cost for that. And again, one of the things that we want to talk about a little bit this year is when we see transfer out of funds, what's that actually supporting? So these are all the capital projects that hospitality tax are funding or working to fund within the budget. So you can see most of them are all parks, or they're related to tourism areas and help with tourist related activities. And then when they're going to the general fund, this is what they're supporting, as we talked about, civic events, the personnel that puts on those events, and then the people who are overseeing those budgets and so forth, public services for maintaining the parks, and all of those are allowable expenditures within the state law for those funds. So local accommodations tax, this is 3% on gross proceeds from sleeping accommodations. We're anticipating, we've seen this number start to decrease a little bit, and Mayor and I heard we had a mayor-managers meeting on Monday with some of the mayors and managers around the county. Hilton Head's talking a little bit about how they're seeing their numbers down. So this is kind of reflected in that. You can see it's a decrease about 16% over last year. That's what we're anticipating right now, and we track those numbers as we receive them, and we'll adjust as we need to throughout the year. Again, these go to transfer out 75% of them to CIP projects, and then 25% go into the general fund to offset expenses we have related to local accommodations items. I'll go through those here, so you can see these are the capital projects that they're going out to support. And then these are where they're transferring into the general fund to help offset, again, the expenses to operate the Welcome Center, the Bluffton Ambassador Program, special events where the police are present. And then you can see the new one there with workforce housing for the 15%. That says workforce, sorry. Should be affordable housing. State law calls it workforce. We got to make sure we get that wording right before second reading.
I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
When we see workforce, it should be like a
Big red.
Yeah, big red word that we should know. So that explains where that's for. So going into stormwater, and these are a lot quicker than the general fund. These are generated from the stormwater utility fee. This gives you a comparison of how our fee is. We have not increased it in several years. Gives you a comparison of where we are related to those around the county. You can see we're 115, keeps us in line with Beaufort, Beaufort County, City of Beaufort, Hilton Head, a little high compared to Port Royal, but in relationship to our surrounding areas, we're in line with them. The revenue from that mostly comes in from the utility fees and then some transfer in from prior years. Most of that is capital projects, and then some licensing that they have whenever they do inspections and review of plans. So this shows you where the revenue comes from. It's pretty much steady to where it was last year. And with construction down a little bit, they're anticipating license and permits to be down slightly over last year as well. So where does that go? About a quarter of it goes to pay for our stormwater staff and then to the operating for the department. We transfer out a little bit to the general fund, and then about a third of it goes to CIP projects. These are what's funding our sewer and stormwater projects. And then you can see about 7% goes to pay the debt for the GO bond that we're using to pay for some of these projects. This gives you the breakdown of that with the numbers. And then this gives you some of the highlights on where the money is going to. Kind of hit those a minute. And then talk about capital improvement. These are all the fun projects we get done throughout the town. This shows you where the source of funds for those come from. Almost 40% of it is CIP fund balance. Again, that's projects that are in progress or that have funding that we're carrying forward into next year. About a quarter of it's coming in from the TIF bonds, the TIF bond that we did in TIF funds. And then you can see the license and permits, the transferring from the general fund makes up about 3%. Then all that together totals all the project or funding for all the projects that we get to do. This is the numerical breakdown of that. You can see that under grants and entitlements, we are waiting to hear later this month on whether we're getting $1 million SE power team for site readiness to help with economic development on Buckwalter. We are hopeful on that. We think we're going to get it. So we went ahead and included it in there, but we won't actually know that until probably second reading or close to second reading. And then where are we using those? As you can see, about a third of it's park projects, about a quarter of it is stormwater and sewer projects. Then you can see economic development on there, land acquisition, housing, facilities, and roads, and so forth. This will give you the numerical breakdown on that. As you can see, about 11.5 million on parks, and so forth on down to total about $33 million total for capital projects. And this just gives you the breakdown on the different types of projects and how much money is going into each. I'm not going to go through each of them. I'll just let you kind of read a little. And this will be put on the town's website should council approve first reading tonight, so the public can pull this up and go through it as they would like. And we will be doing a press release and everything associated.
Are those, just Stephen, one quick question there on these different historic district sewer extension, are those numbers?
4, 5, and 6?
Yes. Are those numbers recent?
No, we've always had 6 phases.
No. I'm saying, how old are those estimated?
Oh, no, those numbers were updated for the budget for next year. Those numbers have been updated for this budget.
They have been updated?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Stephen, I have a question. A minute ago, you said that the ATAX dollars were down for the year?
Yeah, yes, sir. They're trending down.
Why is that?
The island's not as busy.
We're just saying, as we saw them spike up during COVID, we're one of the few states that really remained open, that people traveled to. It was one of the things that we saw with the homes being built. Really over the last year, we've seen the numbers not necessarily match up to where they were the previous year. And as we heard from Hilton Head Monday, they're seeing that same trend, that they're not seeing the room rentals, and even the people who are renting for the summer and everything right now are down to where they were last year.
Oh, okay.
Just a little lower than a year ago.
They're also seeing the cost per room dropping some as well. So they may be renting as much, but they're seeing they're not getting as much per room, or they're seeing less renters. So we're just seeing that we're, again, as you know, for 3 years I've been here with Chris and I, we like to be We'd rather be conservative in some of our estimates and come back to y'all and and have positives versus the middle of the year versus come back to y'all and say, hey, we estimated accommodations tax to go up, even though a trend showed otherwise, and end up having to cut stuff mid-year. So we would rather be more fiscally conservative when it comes to some of our estimates, just to be safe and be positive mid-year versus having to cut. That's a tough thing to go back and have that conversation when you're already behind. So this just gives you a breakdown on where these capital projects are occurring, so you can see they're all throughout the town. And then this gives you the ones that we're doing in Old Town, and most of those are streetscapes and the sewer projects. Last is debt service. So we have a legal debt margin that we're allowed to take in the state without going for a referendum. That's 8%. So when you account 8% of assessed value, that legal debt margin is now at $33 million that we can take on in debt. We have, with what we will pay for this year to pay down our principal, we'll be at about a little over $7 million in debt out there. So we still have about $26 million. And so we're only about 21% leveraged on our maximum debt we can take without a referendum. So that's, again, very sound financially, and one of the reasons that we were able to, when we did our review, got positive reviews on our bond rating. So what do we have outstanding? We have mostly two different funding sources, or two different bonds. One's a GO bond we took in 2020 for capital projects. The stormwater funds go to pay that one. The other one was in 2010, a GO bond to build the law enforcement center in Buckwalter. That one will come up, I think, in 2 years, and we'll have that one done. So you can see there's only about $3.5 million left on that one, and 3.6 left in our GO bond. And then our TIF, our initial one was in 2014. We did a new one in 2022 for about $10 million to cover the new Riverside Barn Park and building. So those are currently what we have for debt. This covers kind of background on our GO. These talk about our TIF background and what they were used for and when they'll expire.
Well, the good thing there is there's more principal than there is interest.
Well, we were able to, when we did, when the interest was down, we've refinanced ones that we had outstanding, and we were able to reduce our payments down a lot by doing so.
Right.
So again, good fiscal sound judgment that was put in there. So this shows you where the funds come to pay our debt, about half from property taxes and a little short of half from fund balance, from the debt service fund balance, and then transferring from stormwater. This shows that represented as numbers. And then this tells you where the expenditures are going. As you can see, when we take debt, it is for projects. 78.5% of it is going out to fund capital projects. And the rest of it, as you can see, is going to actually make payments for those bonds. And that gives you the representation of that numerically. So this talks about our fund balance. Our fund balance is really our savings account. We want it to be healthy for several reasons. One, we're getting ready to hit hurricane season. It is always important to have available fund balance to cover should there be a natural disaster. It is also, should we have any financial issues that arise, being able to have operating fund balance on hand allows us to continue to operate without having to depend on income coming in for a set period of time. And we have several policies in place to make sure that we keep those adequately in place. So as you can see, this is our estimated fund balance levels. And you can see like hospitality tax fund balance going down as we're doing projects. Same thing with debt service, paying it down. And then capital improvements, you can see it going down as well as we're completing projects. Again, this gives you the numerical, we're back to proposed consolidated budget. So we're wrapping it up. Apologize again. I know this one's always long compared to the other presentations, but this is also, again, very important for our citizens and public to hear.
And if anyone has questions, that's fine for a few, questions. I would, remind everyone that we have a workshop on Thursday.
Our
So
first workshop
if there's
Thursday.
something, if there's something that you want to find out that may take them a minute to find out or give you the correct answer, maybe make a note of it and give it to them when we leave tonight so that they'll have time to, get some of those answers by Thursday.
Feel free to give me a ring tomorrow or whatever, and we'll be
Just
glad
a
to.
suggestion.
And there's always conversation that comes up during first reading or first workshop that we'll bring the answers back to a workshop. Normally they're only a week apart. This week with holiday, and other meetings, they're 2 weeks apart. So we'll have time to get anything to council and pull stuff together as we need to. So with that, unless council has questions, as the mayor said, or would like me to clarify anything, should you feel comfortable, there is a motion for council.
Ms. Burden, do you have any questions you'd like to ask now?
I don't have any questions. My one suggestion, and I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke, was just that, and I looked through the fiscal year 24 budget. I just got the budget 25 tonight. But I would love to just see as much information and very easily accessible as possible so that when residents go on the town's website and they want to see where hospitality tax funds are being used or local aid tax, that is very easy to see. Yes, for CIP projects, but the specific one, similar to your presentation tonight, it mentions it. And then our book that we did when we met one-on-one, it also very clearly explains it. But I would love for that to be out there for our residents as well.
Are you referring to where we outlined here with what's actually being used for in the general fund and the projects as well as?
Yes, and I haven't had time, obviously, to go through the 25 book, but I quickly looked at it and I didn't see it in each fund in the binder, and so that would just be my one suggestion.
We did have a conversation about that and also how to include that within our official audit and budget books and stuff like that, so we can put that together as well. Thank you.
Anything else? Anything, Fred? Mr. Woods?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Frazier? Okay, who wants to make a motion? Or not?
I will move. This is a quick one. I move to approve the fiscal year 2025 proposed consolidated budget on first reading.
Is there a second? Any conversation, discussion, or anything from anyone? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, we're moving on now to a consideration of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Taxation. This is first reading, and Ms. Natalie will take
Yes,
the floor.
good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I'm happy to present a recommendation for an ordinance amendment regarding Chapter 24, taxation. Just a little bit of history. This is regarding the committee. Prior to March 2007, there was a committee of 5 members, and they oversaw hospitality tax funds and made recommendations to town council on how to award them. March 2007 is when ATAC was started with Bluffton, and we started receiving state accommodations tax funds. So that state requirement kicked in, and we needed to form ATAC, which consisted of 7 members and the various distributions according to state law. In June of 2019, we codified all of that. Prior to that, it was in resolution form, both the DMO and the committee. And in 2019, we put it into our budget ordinance. This talks about the state law and the requirement for ATAC regarding state accommodations tax funds. When you look at the local accommodations tax funds, there is not that advisory committee requirement. This is a regional comparison of how the various jurisdictions treat their accommodations tax funds. Beaufort County does have a separate grant application opportunity for the local funds. This is both local accommodations and local hospitality tax funds. Their recommendation is at the state level. It does not go through the committee, and then it goes through the finance committee and then to county council. Everybody else is on an annual cycle. We are on a quarterly cycle. I'm not recommending that we change that. It gives an opportunity for all of the organizations to come in throughout various times of the year to request funding for events and festivals. What is being recommended is a wording change in section 24-19. Currently, it states that the committee is to make recommendations to town council concerning the expenditure of revenue generated from all accommodations taxes. And then there's a little bit of a conflict where later on in the article, when it talks about local accommodations taxes, that those should be set by the annual budget ordinance. So there's just some conflict, and this is to help clarify that. Additionally, currently in our code, we have a ceiling on where the local accommodations tax funds can be transferred into general fund. With the Welcome Center coming on, we're recommending that we eliminate that ceiling, and so just to totally take out that paragraph from that section. So the recommendation is to change the word from all to state accommodations taxes, and to remove the current paragraph C that talks about the 10% limit, and then moving the reserve fund up to the new paragraph C. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anything from you, Bridget? Mr. Dan? Good. Okay, so we have a motion. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor. I make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Taxation, as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That was unanimous. Okay, moving on now to consideration of a resolution to adopt the Buck Island Simonville Neighborhood Plan Update public meeting.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council, again. We're here this evening for you to adopt a resolution for the Buck Island Simmonsville Plan. As you know, this was initiated in 2009 with the original plan, which was part of property that was annexed in 2005. That neighborhood plan identified a lot of concerns in the neighborhood. Again, with the map, you can see highlighted in red was the boundary. Some of those issues dealt with included inadequate infrastructure, some land development issues, and community safety. We're here to update this plan since it's been about 15 years, and this was one of the action items that was in the comprehensive plan and part of your strategic plan. So again, that roadmap that gives us the opportunity to move this forward. We've kind of shrunk the area or the limits of the plan that we were looking at. And some of the new priorities were identified in the plan as well, which I'm going to go into a little bit. So plan it's broken down into the introduction, background, and history, some of the existing conditions, and the action plan. And again, by the adoption of this plan does not necessarily represent that any and all of the actual items hold town council to any type of financial obligations. So make sure that is clear. From the development process, we had multiple meetings, including the kickoff meeting. April of last year, we had over 50 individuals in attendance. We had an advisory committee meeting with 5 different main meetings and 10 members. And then we did a draft review in March of this year. Just some demographic information here. A lot of this information you've picked up along the way, but you can see that we've had increases in the population since 2000 in the area. New dwellings, approximately 400 new dwellings in the area. The new residents, over 800 new residents. That median age specifically for our targeted area was roughly 33 years of age. And then while my number of almost 39 for the median age in Bluffton, from our source might be a little different from the source that was provided in the budget that was just presented to you. During the involvement, some of the things that we had, the committee had concerns with is that there's no neighborhood association, and I think that's one of the things that we're looking at forming. There was concerns, just some of the native concerns that we had. One of them also included having community events. So we actually, since the start of this process, that Night of Unity that we had back in January, that was a great opportunity. We had different churches that came out over at Buckwalter Place Park, just had a great night with food and fellowship. Some of the other things was trying to find and form a community identity, which include potentially art or signage throughout the neighborhood. From a land use and zoning plan standpoint, as you can see in the green here, a lot of the areas in green are open space, and what that is there's a lot of floodplains and wetlands in that area, so won't necessarily be developed. But then from a zoning standpoint, you can see the color yellow here is residential general, which does allow for up to 4 units, single-family units per acre. So with that, some of the concerns that the study is going to talk about is the compatibility of scale and density. And what this, again, you have to remember this plan gives us an opportunity to do more research. So that more research might be to find out what is a compatible scale and density for the area, which could result into changes in zoning if that does move forward. We're going to evaluate our manufactured home policy. The way we have it now, again, you're allowed 4 units per acre. We do allow for manufactured homes. If you are allowed 4 units and you have 1 acre, you could have all 4 of those units on your 1 lot. So you don't have to necessarily subdivide the lot in order to have the units there.
Explain what you just said.
Yeah, so an issue that we're faced with is with a lot of heirs properties, it's very difficult for individuals to get a construction loan for a stick-built house, like a permanent house. So we have provisions that allow for, a manufactured home can be placed on the property. And then with the heirs properties, again, it's difficult for individuals to be able to subdivide the property, to carve off land for each individual, to put a 1 unit on 1 lot. So we have a policy where you are allowed to have multiple manufactured units on a lot, as long as you meet your density requirements for the property. So if you own a 1 acre lot, you could put up to 4 manufactured homes on your lot.
But they can all be on a half of acre if a half of the acre of that lot
Half
is
an
wetlands or
acre,
whatever.
you'd only be allowed 2. Yeah.
So I thought what I just heard you say was they didn't each have to have 1/4 of an acre specific.
You don't.
Subdivide it.
Yes.
Because it's heirs property.
Yes. Right. But in essence, what it does is it gives individuals the ability to put multiple units on 1 lot, depending on how much acreage you have. So
I'm still, I think
Okay.
this is clear as mud.
You can cluster them, sorry to interrupt.
That's what I was asking.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was asking. If you had an acre and maybe half of your acre was
wetlands.
highland and
Yes,
half was
yes.
wetlands, you can put 4 on the highlands
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you can
and
cluster
nothing
those.
on the other, as long as you have the other.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Correct. Okay. Sorry about that.
I thought that's what I heard you say, and I was just trying to clarify.
Got it. Thank you. Some of the other things that we're looking at is potentially finding, income-producing uses for residents out there. So we'd need a lot more research into that to see what is feasible. Also, one of the reasons that this plan kind of took longer than normal to get in front of you is that the town just recently purchased the 140 Buck Island Road. That's approximately 15.5 acre parcel. And this will eventually come in front of town council for potential park use. And what we would do is we wanted to make sure it kind of got into the plan. And that way, as it moves forward through our CIP process, community involvement, we're definitely going to want community involvement to see, what type of uses on that park space they would like to do. With housing, again, concerns are, you know, what type of housing is currently allowed out there, if there's any potential changes. You know, we'd also like an increase in the neighborhood assistance program. And as of today, the Regional Housing Trust Fund is proposing, we went towards a grant with the Regional Housing Trust Fund for a neighborhood assistance. And it hasn't been fully voted on, so it's not 100% official, but it's proposed that we will receive $144,000 that can be used towards home repair in the town. So we're really excited about that, with a cap of $9,000 per unit. But that will help us, if officially approved, to be able to use some of those funds for projects that we already have in the pipeline for neighborhood assistance, and then be able to, you know, extend out the number of individuals that we're able to help. So we're
all
excited
of that
about
would be income eligibility, or?
that.
or
That
income,
portion,
or-
yes.
I see.
Yep. The other housing also we have is as Ms. Collin had mentioned, was the townhome single-family units, the May on 1095 May River Road project. From that original plan, as you remember, we talked about that inadequacy of infrastructure. I wanted to put this table up here to show how over the 15 years that the town has invested well over $8 million in, as you can see, the sewer, water connections, the lighting, the sidewalks. All those are infrastructure items that if you were to move into a planned unit development, those are all items that are part of that development and are constructed at the beginning. So we were able to go back and retrofit the neighborhood to include a lot of these items at very little to almost no cost for the residents. Again, some of the projects we talked about, one in particular, we were able to put these, a boardwalk in one portion of Buck Island Road. Ms. Brown, who's already left for this evening, she had grave concerns about, because of the elevated boardwalk over the water, from safety reasons. She was able to work with the town. We were able to get, we had some additional fundings available, and we were able to get railing installed for safety measures in that portion. Again, some of the other services through this would be the street signs, making sure that if we're missing any street signs, we'll be able to go in, replace them. Ms. Smalls right now is working with our fire department. She's doing a blitz on going through homes to make sure if individuals don't have smoke detectors, that we can purchase and help with the installation of those smoke detectors in homes. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are over 38 strategies that are proposed in this plan. And what we'd like to do is, you know, as this moves forward, during strategic plan workshop, these would be some of the items that we would bring to the attention of town council through the town manager to see how we would like to move forward with some of these. Again, we're not going to be able to tackle every single one at one time. But we would prioritize and then move these forward, obviously with your blessing. So from the next step standpoint, this would be you accepting the resolution that was in your packet. Upon approval, what we will do is we'll actually finalize the document, because we didn't have a final date on it. We take the watermarks, things like that off of it. We'll print it, bind it, make sure that all of you have copies. All of our advisory committee members have copies, as well as we'll have copies available at Town Hall and on the website. So in case anyone wanted a printed copy, they will definitely be available. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I do have a proposed motion for you.
Any questions, Bridget? Okay, go ahead.
I have a question and some comments. First, I'd like to thank everyone who worked on this plan, from the residents, the advisory board, planning commission, and town staff. I think we have a great start towards something that could be tweaked to become a living document to guide us where we want to go. So with that said, I would like to just give a brief history and then go into some of my concerns. So for those who aren't familiar, the Buck Island, Simmonsville area was once comprised of what they call kundas. And kundas in the Gullah language are consider compounds like houses of hope. So in less than a mile, you could go from your great-grandmother's house, your grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousins, everyone lived in the same area, same square space. We get to a place now where we see that our population, the Black and Gullah population in Bluffton, now sits at 8% from where it was once over 80%. So there are grave concerns there as we talk about a plan that would help us not only help preserve the way of life for residents who naturally settled, natively settled that area, but how do we also make sure that they understand they're part of this landscape, not only for now, but for future generations. And so one of the concerns that I have that came out of that, looking at the plan, is there's a mention of creating a task force, and I believe some on the board addressed that as well. I would like to see the town take a stance and not just saying we will explore that option, but it will be a town-supported committee in the sense of it'll have the same functionings of having appointments to not only include native residents, but it should be an inclusion of those who live in Bluffton that may also come and have some impact, whether they're behind a gate or not. I think having a very diverse board there that takes ownership of the importance of making sure we keep our Gullah identity and culture here, I think would be great. And we have examples of that to build on. Also, a concern that I had is I see there's a mention of the public infrastructure in Section 9 of the plan, and it briefly talks about a focus with how we clean and clear out the ditches, but it doesn't go into addressing some of the problems and even proposing some ideas. And I think what's happening in that area should have a greater focus on how we do address that, because it's not just one section of land. Anytime it rains significantly there, it is flooded to standing water for quite some time in residents' yards. And I know DOT owns it, but the last time Public Works had to come out and help residents even dig the ditches to be able to prevent some of that water from just saturating their yard. So I would like to see somehow we can come up with something in that plan that's going to speak to that, because that's a growing concern for residents along those roads. Those are my two comments.
Thank you. Dan?
That's from good.
Britt, I want to say something on your comments there. You know that we're doing the Old Town District drainage study. Maybe there's something that
We already funded that, you approved that at last month's meeting with me.
Well, we funded it, but it hadn't been done yet.
It's underway currently. They're already out there doing asset inventory assessments, and then we'll begin to do the modeling. So that you already approved that work, it's already underway. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. That's a good start right there to get the professionals to tell us what it is we have to do to get the water to move to the lowest point.
And it'd be nice to add that in the plan too, so you could address it and then residents could see that there is something on paper in terms of how we're looking at it.
I agree totally. Fred?
Bridget, also, if you remember, I didn't like the fact that it was going to be a 2-year study, so I asked town to make sure that while we're studying, we repair what we find.
If it's our infrastructure, yes, sir, definitely, or notify others, therefore, of maintenance needed.
And we took the comments that you had in the contract that we signed with them, outlined that they're to bring us anything they find as they find it, and not wait till the end.
All right, and I like all your comments, Bridget, so I'm giving kudos to those things and saying ditto to your comments. Thank you.
First of all, great job on this, Kevin, and I know Charlotte, and to the advisory committee. When I went to the one public meeting and then to one of the committee meetings, I felt like the number one thing I heard was just the overdevelopment, where this special neighborhood within our town, we could lose the characteristics of it. And so on your action items, it says looking at the scale and the residential density, and I think it has a February of 25 date on that. And I would just, and I hope that that can be considered before then, just before any other developments potentially pop up. I know there's 3 big ones in that neighborhood on the horizon, and I just hope that we can relook at this before anything else comes up.
Our zoning and our UDO, and some of our planned unit development allows developers still to build without including affordable housing. I know that's gonna take some work, but I think we need to roll our sleeve up and figure out how to make sure, at least in the communities that are low to moderate income, those developers, if we can find a way to make them adhere to the same 20% of affordability, it would be a great asset to communities to keep the character that Ms. Burden just talked about, and not only the character, but also preserve the culture.
Aren't those new developments or any new development in that area required to come under our 20%?
No, sir, they're not. So
I'm confused again. Who is?
any new development that is going into, if you are, let's say you're annexing into the town and you're going into an existing PUD or creating a new PUD, 20% of your residential units would be required to be affordable workforce housing. So
only if you're creating a new PUD.
Correct.
Or
So-
opening an old one. And
yes,
amending
and adding, yes. So like a lot of the properties that are in the Buck Island Simmonsville area are in straight zoning districts, meaning that you're allowed, by right, you're allowed, 4 units per acre. So, 1 per quarter acre that you have. So you are not required by law to have affordable housing. Now, we have provisions and incentives to encourage. You can get extra units in that residential general district to do affordable for that purpose right there.
Right.
But you're not required to do it.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing here from both sides, we're saying that we don't want it to be overbuilt. So, we don't want to, they don't want to see an increase in density, but then we're saying that we can give them an increase in density if they build affordable. So it's, it's kind of.
Well, they have to be.
Two of the same,
Not necessarily, Larry. There have to be some kind of balance, because you have to look at a performer for a developer. Why would they want to build affordable housing when they can build the standard housing and make more money? I mean, it's business no matter how you look at it. So I'm speaking as a business person myself. If I wanted to capitalize on all my on my potentials, I'm going to go for the bigger bang. However, we're saying we have to put all our tools in the box to make it a balance that you would give the opportunity for a developer or even a private owner to build affordable housing. And the only way we can do that, because of the cost of real estate, is to provide some incentives because of the value of real estate.
Oh, I get that whole concept. I've been around it and been listening to it for a long time. What I was just saying is we just heard y'all say that you don't want overbuilt.
Overbuild.
More density is the same thing in a way.
If not, what
You're gonna build it anyway. Excuse me 1 second. They have by law, they can build it anyway. You can't stop that.
It could only build 4 units per acre.
No. It depends on how, if they go under the PUD, right?
Well, in the residential general, you're allowed 4 units per acre, so it depends on your zoning district.
Right.
Now, if you were to go into a PUD, you could request many units as you want to request.
And that's when we can implement the 20%
Yes,
affordable housing
yes,
part of it.
correct.
But right now, it's 4 units per acre.
For residential general, yes.
Okay.
And if I may, I think Councilman Hamilton, I believe, well, part of the previous strategic plans includes, looking at those development agreements to see how we can implement that. So I think that's a priority and a task that I've taken from you, something that we can work on that's already in the strat plan. So I'm aware of that. Now, specifically for the Buck Island Simmonsville neighborhood plan, some of the action items, what we can do is if you so choose to adopt it this evening, is to, we have information about a drainage plan as an actionable item under the infrastructure, but we can modify that to specifically include information as to what was just approved by town council. So we'll update that under the action item. Also, was the prioritization of, I think you said item number 4 under land use, which was it item number 4?
It was under land, yes, number 4 under land
Okay,
use.
and what we can do is we can make sure we can update that timeline in there we can elevate that timeline, just so that way it's not, we're not starting in February, but we can make that one of the top priorities.
And does that address looking at some of the rezoning? Because I know, like, we just talked about 4 acres or 4 houses per acre for residential, but I think some of the issues are some that's in the light industrial, in which they're getting, like the one, it's getting 200 units on 10 acres that's coming up. I mean, that's already been approved. And so it's just trying to prevent possibly those if we.
That wasn't zoned residential. That was zoned.
It was zoned neighborhood core, which is, it's a form-based code, which means that as long as you can meet all of your guidelines of your parking, your stormwater, and your building placement, you can get as many units as you can fit.
So go back
That's
to your
where the
concern,
problem is.
Larry.
So-
The issue wasn't that people in those areas are opposed to development. It's development that's comparable to what the culture of the area is. So where you go from these family compounds, now you're gonna have 86 units overnight with trees and stuff that have been clear cut. And then there was a provision for 4 additional apartment units that would have brought maybe 90 units before we took that off of the books when we purchased it.
Right.
And further down the road, that 200 unit that's coming. So it's not that anyone's anti-development in those areas. It's just development that's gonna significantly impact the area, that changes what that landscape would have been, similar to if those same type of developments were allowed in Old Town or, Palmetto Bluff, the type of, outrage it would be, because you change the landscape overnight. And so it's making sure that we are looking at the UDO, that something to that magnitude doesn't happen again to impact those residents where they didn't have a say in that until, after the fact.
Right. Well, and also those new developments that are coming that we really can't do anything to stop, they should play a big role in this watershed, the water problem. Kim?
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
There's these studies that we're doing right now, that's including that entire area, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Some of it, not all of it.
I thought it included all of Buck Island area.
that's what I'm asking.
Parkway, so not all the way up, but I'm sorry, I'm being very specific.
All the way to the Parkway, including the property that we just purchased.
That'll be part of it, yes, sir.
I want to make another observation to Bridget's point. I think one of the things that the town has really, really strive to achieve with the diversity we have in our community, because so many people are moving here that don't even know us. They don't know our history. And the Old Town Master Plan tried to capture that. And it's a good model to go look if you're new here and to go read the first few pages of it. But I think, again, you know, you have the Eagles Ball Field, which is the anchor identifier to what the community was. The community is obviously changing. It's drastically changing right before our very eyes, just based on the percentage of the population that is now native Bluftonian there. Anyway, again, I think we really need to make, and maybe it's in the plan in detail, but to make an all-out effort to identify everything we can that is based on the culture and the history that you're talking to, whether it's signage or whatever it may be. Somehow we got to figure out how to maintain that, and I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, it's going to be what was mentioned briefly in there with the, talking about settlement communities in section 9, where item 4 is creating, right now we just have an advisory board. Take that up a notch and let it be a task force, similar to what other areas have, to where they meet and have discussions on these issues, because it's not going to be effective if it's not policies behind what's going on. That's the only thing that's going to impact these areas that really allow things that we talk about, whether it's UDO, whether it's drainage and infrastructure conversations. People have to know that they can go from having a formalized group that's meeting and addressing those concerns, that it's going to have some type of policy impact that council is going to be able to weigh in on. Otherwise, it's like, you know, they're meeting to meet, and we don't want that, because that means nothing's getting addressed.
I agree. Okay.
I think Kevin's taking your comments and updating the motion to reflect those. And then based on that, I think it will give us some priorities based on the comment, should council adopt it tonight, on what we need to prioritize. And based on what Councilman Frazier just said, we can, should we want to take that direction on the task force, we can bring back and have it adopted by resolution, similar to we did the Affordable Housing Committee and stuff like that, and bring that back and make up, and what the board make up, and give them some direction from council on what we want to make sure they accomplish. And like she said, there's some information staff's already pulled from the one in Hilton Head, and I think a similar one in Savannah that we can use as a guideline for putting that together. And then the other things is he's capturing is prioritizing some other items that y'all brought up as well. So we'll let him finish typing while everybody's watching, and then see if he captured everything that you wanted to make sure we got.
Do you have more to put on there, Kevin, or?
Those are the 3 items. The other one, Councilman Hamilton, is dealing with the affordable housing. That's already existing in our strategic plan, and I think that's a separate issue from the Buck Island-Simmonsville neighborhood plan. A very important issue, but it's not necessarily part of the neighborhood plan. That's more focused on development, dealing with development agreements.
Dealing with development agreements, but also in neighborhoods, and I have to say, Gorthy Road should be included in those kinds of consideration. If you're going to allow that type of what you call it, general,
the residential general,
then we have to make sure that you don't put $400,000 units in there when the residents that live there can't afford to live there. And when we talk about historically black neighborhoods, and I'm not putting all blacks in that category that they can't afford to live there, but the majority of them need to have the ability to maintain their family generations of being, living in Bluffton or living on the street where they grew up, if they want that option.
I don't know how, Fred, I don't know how you do that. I mean, if they're zoned,
well,
and they have by right on certain issues, I would say the only thing remaining to me is, it's kind of like the development we're doing now over on, what is it, 1095? I think we would have to, or look to either provide additional incentives of a different kind, or maybe buy the land and work with somebody to put housing back into that location.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a public outcry too for the ones that may own property and want to sell it. You know, so we're gonna be telling them, no, that you can't capitalize on your inherited land, or, you know, I don't know how big that number would, you know, whether it was, it's hard to put those.
We're saying the same thing, because I don't think I'm trying to stop anybody from selling. I'm trying to make sure that when we do develop, there's an opportunity for low to moderate income families to still live there.
Right. I mean, I understand what you're trying. I don't know how we word that, and not step on somebody's, well, they can't sell it, you know, might not be able to capitalize on their property and get a decent price if we restrict it to the point where no developers or nobody's gonna buy it to develop it.
What I've noticed in government, you have to have the political will to do things. So if you don't have, without that political will, you just do business as usual, and then nothing changed. Do the same status quo from day to day. That the life that I'm trying to preserve is people who can't come to these tables and make that decision. So 5 of us had the opportunity to do that.
Sure, and I'm all about that. I support supporting people, always have. We just got to figure out what it is and what it is we're
Roll up your sleeve and figure it out.
You don't necessarily have to solve it now, as you know, there's lots of legalities with requiring or things like that, so we can always request, you know, that our state delegates and representatives, you know, look at ways to help support that, so, Kevin's trying to get some language in here to make sure that we address that and get it captured in the plan. So it was easy to solve, we'd already solved it, but we're just working on it.
Could I suggest that we, on number 3, that we try to add some language to the effect that this committee would be tasked with, I don't know, just writing some words down, to enhance and preserve the identity of the neighborhood and implement this neighborhood plan in accordance with the town strategic plan, which covers the workforce housing, because we know that's a very big thing. And,
affordable housing.
I know you can't. Sorry, I can't type. No, but I think we should give that, if we're gonna do a committee, we should give that committee some type of
charge.
Some type of charge, yeah, some type of, this is what we want you to help us do.
Yes. We can bring that back as we formalize this committee.
Okay.
We can
Give them
create a charge.
Okay.
So, to reiterate what he said, it was this committee will enhance and preserve the identity of the neighborhood and work to implement
This
community plan.
This plan.
This plan.
In accordance with the town strategic plan.
That will give us guidance on how to put the founding language together for the committee, for the council to review and adopt. Charging motion.
Okay. Text keeps getting smaller. Okay?
All right, we have a motion here. Is there anybody that would like to make this motion?
I'll make it. I move to approve with conditions the adoption of the Buck Island Simmonsville Neighborhood Plan Update Number one, update the timeline for action item number 4 in land use and zoning from February 2025 to July 2024. And update strategy item number 8 in public infrastructure based on the proposed drainage plan for the area. Also, number 3, to include strategy item 8 in community involvement and identity to create a town-supported committee for the Buck Island Simmonsville neighborhood. This committee will enhance and preserve the identity of the neighborhood and work to implement this plan in accordance with the town's strategic plan. And lastly, number 4, to research additional incentives to help support affordable housing.
Got the last word right. Good job.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. That is unanimous.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Good typing, Kevin.
Okay, moving on with next, number 5 is consideration of the acceptance of Bryant Holding LLC's 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton's corporate boundaries consisting of a total of 2.14 acres, more or less, located at 30 Davis Road and bearing Beaufort County Tax Map R6000029 0000028 0000. Annex Z 03-24-019045. Mr. Kevin, you're up again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening. We are here this evening for the intent to annex the Bryant Holding property. Mr. Johnny Bryant is here in the audience, so I just want to recognize that he is here to be able to answer questions you may have. So Mr. Bryant did submit an application on March 14th of this year, a 100% application for the one parcel that he owns, which is the 2.14 acres, as you've just described. So pursuant to this, he is requesting to go into the town's residential general zoning district. As we've stated, allows for up to 4 units per acre. His intent is to use this for, as you refer to, a family compound. So he's looking to provide just housing for family members. So if you choose to accept this annexation, we have concurrent applications that will be required. Again, a little bit of background, it's 2.14 acres, so he's allowed up to 8 units, since it's for a 9th unit would be 2.25. So this is off of Davis Road. You can see the map located here. Davis Road is off of Highway 170. It is close to, that's the National Healthcare property. Again, from the zoning map standpoint, you can see here's the subject property, which is that rural, the T2 rural. Under current zoning, some of the uses that would be allowed on that property, I'm not going to read through all of them, but you can see there are potential uses for some general retail, gas station, daycares, agricultural uses, mining, extraction. So those are all under the current county zoning regulations. And as proposed, it would go into that residential general zoning district, which allows for, we say residential and some commercial uses. When we say commercial, we're referring to, you could do a family daycare. That's considered a commercial use, or a golf course, that's considered a commercial use. Obviously, you're not going to create a golf course on 2 acres. So that's within reason that we have there. Again, just a breakdown of the comparison, as we talked about, I do have a typo here. It is not 2.25, it is just 2 parking spaces per residential dwelling unit. Future land use map, again, the property is under that suburban living, is located just outside the boundary lines. So from a review process standpoint, if you so choose to accept the annexation, you can accept it, and I do have 2 proposed motions this evening. You can refer this to the negotiating committee if you so choose. You have that ability. If you so choose, we would bring it to the negotiating committee. Then ultimately, we're going to take this to our planning commission workshop. Then Planning Commission again will hear it with a public hearing and recommendation, and it'll come back to you with 2 readings. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, Mr. Bryan is here. Happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Fred, you got any questions?
Yeah. What is the zone down in the county?
That
RT2.
T2 rural.
1 unit.
3. 1 unit
Yeah.
per 3 acre, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is technically an upzoning, but with having 2 acres, he would be potentially allowed up to 8 units if he wished to do any type of subdivisions.
But we can't put any restrictions on, I think you said he wanted to make it a family compound, but we can't say it has to be a family compound, right?
No. That's a conditional
I think that's
rezoning.
counterproductive. I know that my family's farm, ranch in Florida, there was numerous houses from our family there, from my grandparents to sisters and aunts and uncles, and everybody built houses there. And there's one left because people have moved on or passed on. They don't stay forever. They don't live forever.
Well, we have made in the past some exceptions for family compounds as far as, different, that's listed. We talk about it because we talked about it before. The big thing is whether it's a family compound or not, the maximum per acre is 4 units. That's what they're saying they want to do. That's what it is. Right now, they're going to have 1 house on 2.14 acres. It's a good thing it's not like that in Bluffton, because we'd be lonely.
And just
downtown.
Just so you're aware, from a development process, if Mr. Bryant was annexed in and it was zoned that residential general, he could potentially carve off 2 lots off of the we'll call it the parent property, without having to do any type of additional engineered developments or development plans. Let's say that he did want to create a subdivision with, 6 units. He would be required to go through our development review process, which includes going through our development review committee and planning commission in order to get engineered plans that were reviewed and approved. So he would, if in the future he did anything like that, he would have to have like full engineered development plans, creating roads, adding the infrastructure, things like that.
Excuse me, but I just will add to that to avoid any confusion. However, if it is a family compound, there is that exception to the process that you're exempt from certain things from the development plan review requirements.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you?
So, sorry, Kevin.
I knew there was something in there pertaining.
Sorry, sometimes sitting over there, I can, I thought maybe this is where you were going to earlier. So there is a provision in the Unified Development Ordinance that addresses family compounds. So there's certain exceptions. So if you are subdividing or placing homes on the property for your family members and not to sell it as in a subdivision, there are certain exemptions. So you don't have to produce all of those same documents that a development plan would require. So as long as it is, so that's where, thought maybe that's where you were going, Mayor, earlier.
It was.
So if it is a family compound, so to speak, there are exceptions and things that he may not have to do. But if he does truly subdivide it and sell the lots, then like Kevin said.
That's what I was going to ask. It would solve their family needs today, but it's not in perpetuity.
Correct.
I got it.
Right. Could always change it and come back and do whatever the other things are before they, like if you wanted to sell it or whatever.
And it's whatever it would be at the time the code changes, or whatever the code is at the time the development's proposed.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely.
And this is initial anyway, right?
Yeah.
This is the intent to annex,
Intent.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
Anything else, Fred? Burton, you have any comments? Bridget? Dan? Well, I have, I've been looking at this since it was submitted, and, while we were just talking about Buck Island, Simmonsville and all that, you know, what our goal is for the people that are from here or their ancestors are from here or whatever, to being able to stay here and keep the culture and the heritage and our way of, I say ours because I've been here too, way of life alive, and prospering. This is a perfect example of what we were just talking about, wanting to protect on Buck Island, Simmonsville, and Goatee Roads. So with that being said, there's a motion on here, if anybody would like to make the motion.
I'll make the motion. I move to accept Brian Holding LLC 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton cooperative boundaries, consisting of a total of 2.14 acres, more or less, located on 30 Davis Road, identified as Beaufort County Tax Map number R6000029 0000028 0000.
And I'll second that motion. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. That's unanimous. Sorry they put you on so late.
No worries.
Almost last. Not quite last, sir. All right, moving on to number 6, consideration of an ordinance authorizing an economic development incentive agreement between the town of Bluffton and Palmetto Land Associates, LLC, in support of the development of 11,800 square feet of medical and healthcare facility space. Mr. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So just to kick this off, this is our second application for the Economic Development Incentive Grant. And I just want to share a quote from Dr. Jeffrey Solomon. He's the first recipient that he provided to us when that was, the press release was sent out. So this town program, along with Beaufort County, eased the process of relocating my business to Bluffton. The business incentives helped with the unforeseen costs. However, the intangible benefits were also invaluable. The town's program was like having a tour guide through the process. It increased my comfort level with all the moving parts of being a new business owner in a new town. And that is why we are here, and that was the intent of passing the Economic Development Incentive Ordinance to begin with. As background, is the other, okay. Yep. So background on this, you all passed in September 12th of 2023, the ordinance, and it identified these incentive areas of South SC 170, the Boulder Parkway, and Bluffton Parkway incentive areas. And the target of business purposes are all identified there as part of the ordinance. The applicants are required to submit a letter of intent along with the SC Department of Commerce Economic Development Impact Worksheet. After we received those, staff, myself, and David review that. We actually set up an interview with the developer business owner to get additional information from them. We go through additional staff reviews and come up with a recommendation, and we bring it to you all for your consideration. The development in question tonight is referred to as Bluffton Yards, or they refer to it as Bluffton Yards, and it is a proposed new development focused on pickleball, fitness, food and beverage, and healthcare. The entire development, as of right now, is proposed at 70,000 square feet of total commercial. The total investment estimate is around $25 million. As part of their application for the incentive, they were willing to commit 11,800 square feet and dedicate it to healthcare and medical in their out parcels on the development. And they're estimating $4 million investment for that piece of the project. This is the current site plan, and just to note, the pickleball portion of it to your right on the screen, and the courts in that building right there, that is the COFA and development plan has been approved. The out parcels still have to go through that approval process. So they are looking for an incentive grant to help them kick off that process. As a reminder of what's eligible as part of a grant is the permanent development fees up to 50%, our Beaufort Jasper water or capacity fees up to 100%, and our business license fees up to 50% for 5 years. And then, as mentioned before, the ordinance also throws in there other incentives on a case-by-case basis determined by council. As I presented at the last grant, we had kind of put together this guide to help us identify where our recommendations would land on what percentages they should get. This project is expected to be 44 jobs in healthcare and $4 million dedicated to the healthcare out parcels. So it qualifies based on our current guide for the full grant proposal. Oops. As you all know, I try and do an analysis for you all to put numbers to that. Given where they are in the process, these are very rough estimates at this moment, and it's based on what we've seen in other projects. These are all subject to change, and as a reminder, these grants occur after the fact. So once the criteria are met and the items are paid, they would receive a grant back for the portion that is agreed to, the percentage that is agreed to. So even though you approve it tonight, these numbers can adjust because you're approving the percentages, not the actual dollar amounts. The current estimate over 5 years is a benefit to the developer of $72,671. And over the 5-year period, the development could generate a total in taxes and fees of almost $120,000. So the net revenue over that period is about $46,921. As a reminder, the developer would be committing to commit 11,800 square feet to medical and healthcare space and $4 million investment in medical and healthcare space. The grant paid would be paid annually on the month in which operations are established, and the grant equivalents are there. We're proposing 50% of permit fees, 100% of capacity fees, and 50% of business license fees for 5 years. Any questions on the second incentive grant?
Emily?
Yeah, question.
Fred?
Yes. Chris?
Yep.
What are the pros and cons from staff?
The pros is that he's going to be committing some of the out parcels towards healthcare. Without the grant, he could lease it all to retail or lease it to food and beverage. There would be no commitment to identify space for healthcare, which is within our target industries in our ordinance. So that would be the pro. Really, the cons are oops, going the wrong way, I apologize. You're giving up $72,000 in fees and taxes for him to do that.
In a way, but also in a way, when I look at this, I'm seeing that $40,000 in capacity fee credits. It's ours, and that's the dollar value of them, but it's not money that we could spend anywhere else.
Right. It would only
except for projects like this. You know what I'm saying? They're credits, they're not actual checks. So
the other thing is
take that the biggest part of that is the 40,000.
Yeah.
So then you look at it, you're only talking about 32,000 over incentive over 5 years, which is
right. And those are the face value pros and cons. The other thing is just the economic activity that's generated on the back end. Healthcare jobs tend to pay a little bit more. It's about 44 FTE healthcare jobs, so that generates some strong economic activity.
And it's also what our residents are saying we need more of. So.
The other thing I would add that is a pro and con with this is to remember that with the way our economic development ordinances are set up, is everything is reimbursement based. the grants are back to equivalent to what they pay. So the town is not out any funds unless they actually open, operate, and actually meet everything that they say they're gonna meet. So we've tried to balance any liability with that. So the only thing that would be any potential upfront funds that may come up would be the capacity fees, like the mayor was talking about. But if they don't reserve that medical space, then they don't get any of these things. So unlike some of the bigger economic development things the county does, where they front funds and then take on some of that risk, we've balanced that with this. So we've tried to make that a pro with this as well.
With economic development, one of the things sometimes I think we miss the boat on is that we don't ask them for guaranteed Bluffton employees. Because we make, even though these are credits that we given, but we giving Bluffton monies. And the jobs come from Savannah and Pooler or whatever. The residents come from there. So, and I'm not trying to do that for this item tonight, but in the future, when we negotiating, let's try to negotiate about how many jobs you're gonna send to Bluffton or pick from Bluffton, okay?
We can do that.
I have a question, Chris. So what's the timeline in when we would know definitively if we are going to develop those medical facilities?
We don't have a requirement on there. We just say that they won't be eligible for the grant until the month in which operations are established. So again, it'd be basically, they'd pay everything up front. And then once the business license issued for the healthcare facilities within those out parcels, they'd be eligible to get that grant issued back to them. So we're protected from that standpoint. They don't have a commitment as far as a time frame as of this moment.
Question.
Yes.
This is all new. I'm assuming that within 1 to 2 years, you will go back and review and look and see what we're actually dealing with based on what the assumptions were.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions from council? Is there someone that'd like to make a motion that's on front? I'll make it. I make a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance authorizing the town manager to enter into an economic development grant agreement between the town of Bluffton and Palmetto Land Associates LLC. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Stay right there, too. All right. Next, we have consideration to authorize a contract renewal between Palmetto Bluff Preservation Trust, Inc. to reimburse for residential trash removal services in the Palmetto Bluff community for the calendar year 2024. Physical impact is $193,744. Mr. Forrester.
Thank you. So a little background, obviously the town of Bluffton provides residential trash service currently. In 2013, the town of Bluffton entered into a contract with Palmetto Bluff Preservation Trust to provide payment to them equal to the amount the town would have otherwise incurred if it provided trash service through the town contract with Waste Management. So the current projected number of units receiving trash pickup with Palmetto Bluff is 1,095. That's the FY25 projection. And the current contract has been set to an annual renewal basis. The renewal amount estimate, again, this is an estimate based on the increase in waste management fees as well as the increase in number of units projected, is at $193,744. Since it's over 100,000, it is all coming before you all. This equals the amount that we've included in the budget, and also equal to the amount that would have been charged for trash service should we have been providing service within the community out there. The staff recommends approval to renew this agreement for the amount of $193,744 on a 1-year basis.
Questions from council? Mr. Burden?
None.
Yeah. They don't have a trash pickup?
They do.
And who's they, what company they use?
I'm not sure of the company they use, but they have a separate contract. And actually, I think they pay more for their service because of some special exceptions. But we are only giving them the amount that they would have gotten if we provided them ourselves.
Okay, they have a trash service, but they don't want us, they don't want to use the company that we use.
That's correct.
It's always been like that.
I know, I mean,
But we're only paying them the same thing that we're paying for your house and mine. They're not getting more money than, I asked those questions already.
okay.
And the contract used to be a 5-year contract, and last year we changed it to an annual contract so that can be tracked a little more closely and just revisited on an annual basis, so.
I would ask the question, it hasn't been a problem to date, but if it became an issue down the road with other PUDs wanting to do the similar type thing, I would think council would have to step back and reevaluate this at that time.
I think we need to evaluate now because we've been doing it, but we haven't done it for anybody else.
But it's in the contract that we have signed or was signed in with Palmetto Bluff Development.
So if you go way back.
It's a legal document that we're required to do.
Yeah, and the reason why it was set up a little uniquely is if you go way back to the development agreement, it says in there that the town will provide trash service for the Schultz tract, and then it specifically calls out Palmetto Bluff and says that they will provide their own trash service until a time comes where they request it from the town, and the revenue generated from the community is enough to support the actual trash service being provided. So in 2013, and that was way before my time, but in 2013, when the conversation came up, they agreed to basically only get reimbursed the amount that otherwise would have been provided under the level of services that the town contracts for the other neighborhoods. But it was set up uniquely to begin with because of that development agreement provision.
So that development agreement give us a lifetime commitment?
No, it doesn't. It can be reviewed as part of this agreement from the way I interpret it, unless Terry says otherwise. But again, as of right now, we're recommending to approve on an annual basis with the idea that we're bringing Richardson and Terry to look at ways that we can restructure the contract so it's a little more solid.
One other piece that may be in play here is if they've already contractually obligated themselves to somebody, they may be in the middle of a contract unrelated to what we're doing, but it certainly could be reviewed.
The only advantage that I could see from this whole thing, instead of doing it like this, would be the increased volume and maybe a little bit of a lesser rate that we would get from waste management if those 1,000 homes were included, you know, along with our other whatever thousands we have. You see what I'm saying? But otherwise there's no advantage or disadvantage that I can think of unless somebody's got one that I'm not seeing.
Well, to Councilman Hamilton's point, it's not, the advantage or disadvantage, but more so the precedent that's set here. So if another PUD or another development is like, well, we don't want waste management, but we know you all are contracted to, because you collect fees from us for that particular purpose, we want to allocate those fees to a separate waste management services. And so it's kind of like, going back to also what Councilman Wood said, when do you step in to intervene to kind of say no to one if you're saying yes to the other?
Yeah, but how can, if they're in the town of Bluffton and we're doing it for some, then realistically, I would think that we're obligated to do it for all.
Obligated to do it when we.
You know what I mean? Or all or none.
Right.
And I would hate to take that service away from our residents.
The
Because
development agreement requires it at this point. So I think until we amend the development agreement, and the only way to do that would be with their consent at this point. We're under the hook, we're on the hook to provide trash service for them, just like we do for the rest of our residents. So if they want to sub it out to a third party, we're only obligated to pay what we would have had to pay if we were doing it under our contract.
Right, and that's what we're doing, that's what these numbers
That's what
are
these numbers
today.
are, right.
Correct, Chris?
Yeah, these are based on our current contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, which we all understand. I'm not arguing that. What I'm trying to state here is in looking at, because previously we didn't have it to where amounts of or expenses of a certain amount had to come before council. We approved it. It was always on consent. So now that we're having these discussions and it's more accessible, I'm just looking at how do we mitigate those who would see this and state, well, if we don't have those same exceptions and our neighborhood wanted to do the same thing, even though we're saying we're providing a trash service for them, they're still subbing out their services and we're sending over the fees to them to be able to pay a third party to collect their trash. They're saying we're not using waste management. I'm saying, how do we look ahead if another community comes to us requesting to do the same thing? What would our response be? And if we don't have that in consideration, I think we should be prepared to look at that someone else might think, hey, I want to do the same thing.
Let me jump back in. I think what I'm hearing from council is until such time as we can rework or reopen that development agreement, we're obligated to it. If they ever come back, technically, we probably could have had this discussion with them when we were doing the marina, you know, but but anyway, I think that's what I'm hearing is no to anybody else, and we will revisit this legally when we can to bring them back into the house. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, maybe Dan, no to anybody else. Can we really stand on that? Can we really say no to somebody else if we already providing that?
And would we as a council want to say no to anyone that's within the town?
I think here would be my concern, and you made the point, Larry. You said because of the volume of resident that Waste Management is supporting, we're probably getting a discount. So if we keep losing the volume, we're gonna lose the discount.
Right. True. That's true. I mean, I just said it like that, meaning that would be the only thing, in my opinion, that could really make a difference, you know, on the amount of money.
Well, then let's ask this
And maybe we can ask Waste Management, just say, okay, go ahead and add another 1,000 homes, whatever what do they have, 1,100 or so?
About, I mean, 11,000? Are you talking about, Palmetto Bluff?
Palmetto Bluff.
Yeah, about
Yes.
1,100.
1,100.
Which would be about an additional 10%.
You know, I mean, we could always ask them and say if we increased it by 1,100, but then I'm not sure by the time they go all the way out there where those houses are and through all those, you know what I mean, whether we.
Well, if we did it, it would be at the level of service that we provide to all citizens, which would be just, people would have to wheel their carts out. We would pick up trash once a week, recycling every 2 weeks.
Right.
And that's where we're at, is they provide probably additional services that we don't. The question we could ask Waste Management is, could they pay for the difference for that? I don't know. But right now, with the development agreement written the way it is, we can start looking at that and have those conversations while, if we want to move forward with it this year, with the way it's in development agreement, and we can look at putting some things in place so that if anybody comes in and asks additionally, we can be prepared to answer that, or we can have the conversation with Waste Management about how council may not be totally comfortable with the arrangement that's in place, and how do we revisit that.
Yeah, and we have to keep in mind too, you know, that the value of those homes over there, the amount of tax revenue that we collect from those people is, they help a lot of people get their trash picked up. You know, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, the average value of a home there, he said last time he was in here was, the average resale was $2.5 million, average. So the cut of taxes off of that property tax bill that the town gets is substantial. And that's what's helping us being able to do the things that we're doing for all our other residents as well. So,
well, the other question,
I don't believe, like, you know, you gotta remember where the goose that laid the golden egg.
We also don't want to send though a sediment that having or meeting a certain socioeconomic status allows privileges that others don't get to also abide by. I think whatever the rules are, if it works for, if we're gonna say everyone needs to abide by a certain policy, then it should be something that any resident, wherever they are able to access it.
Well, let me go back to council again. I don't think there's anything that says that we have to let somebody else do this, that you are aware of, is there?
No.
If a PUD came in and says, we want to do what they're doing, we don't have to do that.
We do not. We can negotiate that point.
Right. And so I guess what I'm trying to get to here, hearing everyone at the table, we can't change this tonight. We do want to change it as a council, and we have to look for the right time and obligation to allow us to do that and fix it where everybody's on the same field, but we can't do that tonight.
Right. We can also relay that to Palmetto Bluff and South Street to let them know that there's some level of uncomfort with council and this, and see what, and start that conversation and see how we can get to that point.
Perfect. Okay.
There's a motion. Would somebody like to make it? Make a different one. Emily?
I'll make the motion. I make a motion to authorize a contract renewal with Palmetto Bluff Preservation Trust to reimburse for residential trash removal services in the Palmetto Bluff community.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we got to go back to the number 6. I asked the question, I'd heard that before, Dan, Terry, and I was told that I could make a motion.
I think our code still
Unless
has.
it's a specific town code, because I think state code says that I can.
State code says you can. I think our town code, I think, has a prohibition of mayor making, motions. So we should go back to number 6. I thought Dan made it.
Yeah, well,
I just knew
let's.
it came from down there, and I didn't catch it.
Okay,
Our
so we
code
need to go
says-
back to number 6, Chris.
Yep.
And,
Someone else will
so
need to make the
what
motion.
do I do? Do I need to withdraw my motion?
Your motion is void because you don't have the ability to make it, so someone else needs to just make the motion under number 6, please.
Okay. So,
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance authorizing the town manager to enter into an economic development grant agreement between the town of Bluffton and Palmetto Land Associates LLC.
is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
Okay.
you got that?
Thank you. I got a little confused on that because I read the state law, and state law says I can.
Correct.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda items. Is there anything on here that anybody on council would like to take off or have pulled or discuss?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 3 for discussion, please.
Okey-doke. So I guess we'll pull that off and talk about it before we move on to approving the, other items. Is that the way we do that?
Either way, Kenny.
Report, there's no present.
All right.
Since it was on consent, do we have the
Number 3 is consideration of the May River Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee's recommendation for town council to pursue a new memorandum of agreement with Beaufort County for implementation of the May River Watershed Action Plan throughout the May River Watershed. Ms. Kim Jones, Director of Projects and Watershed Resilience.
So this is coming from strategic plan recommendations from the May River Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee, adopted by the council as part of your action plan and agenda item to implement the recommendations. This is a recommendation, and the attachment is a memo from the chair, Stan Rogers, to y'all on Wade Pack's recommendation that we have a formal agreement with the county that they adopt and agree to implement the May River Watershed Action Plan within their jurisdiction, that is the May River Watershed itself. At this time, we've kind of had a handshake. We've never had a formal agreement, and they believe that it's a good idea to formalize it. Staff approves that recommendation and is bringing it forward for your consideration.
I have one question.
Thank you.
So when you formalize the agreement, based on this item, there is nothing that obligates either party financially at this time. Is that a true or false statement?
I would say that's a true statement. There is nothing that obligates either one financially. For instance, what we are currently agreeing to do and partner on with the Stony Creek sewer, that has its own contractual obligation. However, that does originate from the May River Watershed Action Plan. So to that end, that I said, it's been a sort of a handshake and we've been moving forward in certain aspects with the county. This is formalizing that they recognize the May River Watershed Action Plan is a legitimate watershed management plan for the May River, which is within their jurisdiction. And they recognize that there are actionable items within it that they support. For those that have contractual obligations, monetary obligations, we would have individual agreements for those.
That is clear. The reason I bring up this little devious question is I'm still, and I haven't seen it come before us yet. I know it's been in the staff reports and in the town manager's report. And I said it a year or two ago. I'm not saying pro or con about this homework we're doing on impervious issues, with the projects that we've taken on, and waiting to see the after effects of that, because again, the dollars that were hypothetically budgeted are huge, way huge into the multi-millions. And so I've always indicated to you, I want a red flag, Dan, wake up, don't sleep. We're getting ready to talk about these dollars when they get ready to come, because they're gigantic.
And we're still moving forward on the geotechnical analysis for that impervious restoration work, so that we know we have good soils to get water back down into the ground on certain sites and prevent runoff. So it's not, to answer your question, and there wasn't really a question, but to give you a little on that. Yes, sir.
I have no objections on.
Any other questions for anybody? So do we make a motion for this, Terry, or?
Yes, to approve, correct.
So, who wants, Dan, you're the one that caused this turmoil.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
Oh, can we do it that way?
That's fine.
Okay. So we took it off, put it back on, and now okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, you sure we can do it that way?
Any discussion?
Sure. You took it off the consent agenda. That's a separate item now.
He moved to put it back on and approve it.
Well, he didn't vote on that to put it back.
We just started right now. All in favor, say aye.
Put it
Aye.
back. Okay. Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's time to see, is there a motion to move into executive session to discuss legal and personnel matters relating to the receipt of legal advice regarding police department expert review persistent to South Carolina Freedom of Information Act 30-4-70A12, and personnel matters relating to town manager's annual review persistent to South Carolina Freedom of Information Act 30-4-7A1.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Say aye.
We are in. We are out of executive session. No votes were taken. No decisions were made. What is it I'm supposed to say? Out of executive session. So, where did I put my glasses? So who's gonna read this motion? Couldn't hear you. I can't do the motion, so one of y'all, you wanna do it, see how it, maybe we can vote different, this doesn't matter. Okay. So I got that there. And then this part of the contract comes up. Terry wrote that, so you understand it.
Question, but where'd Terry go? I'm here.
Clarity, should there not be mention about a two-year thing? Because for 365 days, there's nothing indicating how, or do you negotiate?
No, we just terminate that provision of the contract.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell us that. Are you saying that by ear?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha, I'm sorry.
Those are the things you need the ability to do.
I got you.
I move that we grant a raise of 4% to Stephen Steese effectively June the 1st, 2024. That's the motion on that. Well, is that a separate motion you have here, or is this all one motion?
It should be two vote, one pertaining to salary and bonus, I think.
You have these two?
Salary one and bonus second.
That's what I'm asking.
And the other
Do I read them
parts?
both at the same? Because I couldn't tell with it. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Salary first.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. So you're gonna make a whole nother motion for that? Okay.
Next motion is I move that the automatic extension in section 1B and C of the contract of employment dated June the 14th, 2021 be terminated effectively immediately. And this will also include a $5,000 bonus.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
That's unanimous. We are adjourned.